On Friday, a week before Thanksgiving, I was busy clearing the backlog from my desk. I was going to finish this by the end of the day, even if it killed me. My plan was to take a few days off next week, combining them with holidays, and thus get 9 days in a row without work. I could relax, gather my strength, watch football, and quietly eat turkey sandwiches. Most people call me Don. My mom calls me Donald. I don't like it, but what can I do? If you call me Donnie, you'll get an irritated reaction. My ex called me that. And it makes ball rise in my throat. I can still hear Janice's voice. Donnie, don't go. This is not what it looks like, Donnie. Please let me explain. It was exactly what it looked like. She was making love to some asshole she worked with. On my bed, and she got caught. I think my lucky stars every day that I found out about this before. Our wedding. Janice and I were supposed to get married next week, but I left and never looked back. The episode with Janice made me look at myself carefully. I let her wipe her feet on me. I put Janice on a pedestal. I tried to change myself for her sake. She changed my style of dress. We talked to her friends, not mine. She told me over and over again that I was too kind to people. When one of my friends asked, I always helped them. She tried to get me to learn the word no. But in my world, helping friends is okay. What does the old saying say? One good deed deserves another. Well, something like that. Anyway, if I needed anything, my friends would be there. They all owe me something, but I'm not the one who keeps it in mind. At 5 o'clock, I finished with the last folder and hurried out the door with the crowd. It was a hectic day, and I was looking forward to having a beer at the pub across the street. My friends and I were sitting at the bar and relaxing with a cold drink. In general, life was not bad. We played several 8-ball games. In general, we talked and chatted incessantly. I returned to the bar when Candy, one of the sales girls, came up to me with a smile. I always get goosebumps when the salesman gives me such a smile. Candy and I have known each other since she joined the company. About 5 years ago, I am the HR director, and I know, or at least have met with all the employees. Candy and I move in different circles, but we know each other. How can I describe her? Is it high? Definitely at least 5 feet, 10 inches, 178 centimeters. Slim, yes, but with bends and strategically important places. A walking wet dream. Stylish, like a model verified to the smallest. Detail. Is she beautiful? Not in my league, very not in mine. The blonde? No way, bluish black. A lesbian? What? Yes, she has a girlfriend. She hits from the other side of the plate. So this is Candy. She's good at her job, very good. She could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. She is always at the top of her department and next in line for the position of sales director. Don, do you have a minute? I'd like to talk to you. Oh, shit. Here's the commercial. Sure, Candy. Do you want a drink? Yes, with pleasure of beer, please. She smiled, sitting down next to me. Shock. I would guess Chardonnay or Merlot. I placed an order and turned around to see where our conversation would lead. So what do you want to talk about? I asked. I have a little problem, and I thought, could you help? She wasn't so sure of herself anymore. I need a husband. Well, actually a guy? Her voice faltered. Okay, I'll buy it. What's the joke? Is this a hidden camera? Am I being played? I asked, looking around the room. This is really not a joke, Don. My parents are flying to Hawaii on vacation and will stop here next week to spend a couple of days with me. For Thanksgiving, they want to meet a partner. It was beginning to dawn on me. And you told them you were living with a man. She was looking down now, afraid to look into my eyes. Why not just dress up Vivian as a guy? I said sarcastically. Come on, Don, this is not funny. If my dad found out about me, it would kill him. He would have a damn stroke, she said. Candy, this shit looks like a bad situation comedy. I keep watching old reruns of I Love Lucy. There's no way this is going to work unless your parents are complete idiots. Why don't you just tell them the truth? Trust me. The truth will set you free. I told her. I just can't, she stammered. There were tears in the corners of her eyes now. Wonderful. Just damn wonderful. I was in the middle of a snow job, and I was starting to feel like the Eskimo I've already talked about. I wish I could cry like women do. I would go into a car dealership and cry until they gave me a new Mercedes. If I agree, and I really mean if, you're going to have to do something for me. Anything, Don, anything. I'll be very grateful. The smile was coming back now. I want a turkey and more. Yes, and no giblets in the gravy. I hate giblets. Her face lit up like the sun. I think she expected me to ask for more, much more. Maybe something very disgusting for her, like making love to a man. You won't regret it, Don. I promise, she said, kissing me on the forehead. I doubted very much. I'm already sorry, I said to myself. When she turned and hurried away, I called out to her. Candy, no marshmallows on yams. She waved back and hurried out the door. What kind of word is that? That's what I had to say. Well, here's a peaceful, lazy week of rest. I wish this turkey was delicious. Damn delicious. The next morning I tried to sleep, suffering from a hangover. I don't usually get drunk, but after Candy left, it dawned on me what a mess I was in. I heard the bells ringing. Lord, make it stop. Damn, I sat down. It was the doorbell. Who the hell could ruin my day? At a time like this because it was only noon? Candy? What the hell are you doing here? Candy was standing in the doorway with 4 large suitcases. Are you going to invite me in? What is it? She asked. I was standing in my underwear with my eyes closed, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. It was too difficult, but that's okay. I left the door open and went back to the bedroom. Don, I don't want to bother you. Where are the cleaning products? Candy whispered. On the kitchen sink, I grumbled 15 minutes later. Don, do you have a broom? The door to the pantry. In 5 minutes, a scoop. Entertainment center, 2 minutes. Vindex, disinfectant. Wall cabinet behind a Rembrandt. It was obvious that there would be no peace. I crawled into the bathroom, rummaged through bottles of old recipes, and found an old Vicodin that the dentist gave me for pain. I took 2 pills. 15 minutes later, I was mowing the lawn. My iPod was working at full volume, and the smile was almost all over my mouth. I laughed to myself at the fact that I was working in the yard in November. So much for Southern California. I'm sure we'll have another green Christmas. Bad things were coming, really bad things, less than a day after talking to Candy. I had problems with illegal substances and alcohol. Damn, but my yard looked good. I assumed that Candy had arrived early to put Mommy's things in order for her parents' arrival. I'm not a slob, but a bachelor just doesn't clean like a woman. I also decided that Candy had already moved in with me, judging by the size and number of suitcases she brought with her. She was going to stay here all week. Candy was a very busy girl. The house looked like someone else lived in it. By that time, I had already gotten rid of the hangover and the effect of the band. Substances had passed. I went into the kitchen to get a bottle of water. Candy was bent at the waist, cleaning the refrigerator. God, what did I do to deserve this? A cold shower was what I needed. Right now, I needed to take my mind off Candy. Without taking any water, I went to my bedroom. Damn it, I was invaded. All her things were in my room. We'll talk about it after the shower. I had a strain that I had to get rid of first. I hadn't even lathered up when I heard her. Don, I'm going to run to the store. Do you need anything while I'm gone? What is it? She asked. No, I don't think so, is what I actually said. Don, do you mind if I buy new curtains for the kitchen? I don't want to say, but the ones you have now are just terrible, she asked. And that was the main thing she asked. Janice would just do it and not even think about my feelings. Yes, come on, I don't mind. For the next few minutes, I chastised Don Jr. for acting like that. After he saw Candy's ass, I literally knocked all the snot out of him. Twice. It was going to be a long, hard week, and I really mean a hard one. She wasn't a piece of meat to drool over. She just had such an effect on me. It occurred to me that I should be more careful with her. When she returned from the store, her face was red as if she had been crying. Damn, did she read minds too? What happened? Did I do something? I asked with genuine concern. No, Don, it doesn't matter. You didn't do anything, she replied. Are you sure? I looked closely to see if it was my fault. This Vivian, she stammered before breaking down and bursting into tears and sobs. Should I run away? Try to comfort her. I didn't know what to do. It was none of my business. But we were friends. Well, sort of, I did what a good husband should do and took her in my arms. I stroked her hair. I held her until that moment passed. She looked up at me. I returned to my apartment, and Vivian was already in bed with another woman. Damn her. I mean, there's never been anything serious between us, but. And then the tears started again. The house was pretty quiet. That evening, Candy's bad experience brought to the surface a lot of bad feelings towards Janice. I try to keep Candy in a good mood, but it's not easy when you feel like shit yourself. I went to bed early that night, but not because I was tired. This terrible feeling of loneliness was bothering me. Lie in the dark. I really understood how Candy felt. Don, are you awake? Yes, come in, I said. I know I've already asked you a lot, but since most of my stuff is already here, is it okay if I stay until I find an apartment? At least for a few days, she asked. I didn't answer. It wasn't necessary. I held out my hand to her, and she took it, pulling her to me. I hugged her. I hugged her. I had no words. Eventually, I felt her fall asleep in my arms. It was very difficult to fall asleep when this wonderful creature was nearby. Her delicate skin and wonderful smell filled my head with obscene and very vivid thoughts. I remember thinking it would be nice to die like this with Candy in my arms. Candy woke me up early. I'd say around 6. She handed me a hot mug of coffee and sat down on the bed. I'd like to say thank you for last night, Don. I needed it more than I can explain, she said softly and sincerely. I'll be there for you anytime, Candy. I said, you're already doing it. You got up pretty early. Are you going somewhere? I asked, noticing that she was wearing a jacket. Yes, I decided to pick up the remaining things. I want to end this. Give me 5 minutes. I'll just brush my teeth. I told her. Candy was surprised but did not refuse my offer to help. I also wanted to be there. From moral support if something went wrong with Vivian. She was silent on the way, and I felt some bitterness in her, but not towards me. I suspected that she was preparing for a confrontation. Fortunately, Vivian was gone when we arrived. The packing went smoothly, and we were ready to leave in less than an hour. Vivian showed up when the last box was loaded into my old pickup truck. So that's it. You were going to sneak out without saying a word, Vivian said. What else is there to say? You've made your choice and now have a happy life, Candy said, standing next to me. She crawled under my arm and put her hand on my stomach. It was a very tempting gesture. Come on, Don. I see you didn't waste any time looking for a replacement. I bet he's not as good as me. How do you like making love to a smelly, hairy man? It makes me sick to think about it, Vivian grumbled. Actually, it was more than I could have dreamed of. I opened the driver's door and Candy slipped inside, stopping in the middle. I barely had enough room to get inside. She was sitting so close. Vivian's lips were still moving, but she didn't say a word as we drove down the street. When we turned the corner, we both started laughing. I'm sorry, Don, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. She continued to giggle. Candy, you're evil. It was priceless. Worth the entrance fee. I'm starving. Let's eat something. She laughed. By noon, we had unloaded all of Candy's things. It was a hell of a morning. Candy seemed to have already forgotten Vivian. She hummed and hummed as she continued to redo my house. Later, we ate and watched football on TV. Candy seemed to enjoy the game more than I did. I didn't imagine her to be a sports fan. After the game, we talked for a long time and really got to know each other on a more personal level. Candy seemed to me sincere, down to earth, far from what I had imagined her to be. I felt very comfortable around her. We got closer. I found that I wanted her, and not only in terms of betting. Candy yawned, and we both decided it was time for bed. After taking a shower, I climbed into my bed. Candy came in carrying a pillow. Don, I've been thinking, we're going to sleep together while Mom and Dad are here. Would you mind if we made a habit of it? What is it? She asked. There was a certain logic to her thoughts, but that didn't mean I thought they were good. idea. I imagine a lamb crawling into a lion's den. But I wasn't sure which one of us was the lion. Yet, of course, I replied. First, I'm going to take a hot bath and you go to bed. I'll join you. Soon, she ran into the next bathroom. Dream, what a joke. This goddess is in my bed. And it's like I have to sleep to make matters worse. She didn't close the bathroom door. 5 meters away from me, she was taking a bath. I could hear her humming in her soft voice while basking in the huge tub. Torture. That's what it was. I rolled over on my back and tried to fall asleep. I couldn't do a damn thing. Couldn't it have been worse? Or could it? Yes, when I felt her sink down. On the bed next to me, it certainly got worse. I was burning. All I had to do was reach for her. I could already feel the heat radiating from her slender body. She was there to be taken. But no, that would be inappropriate. Wasn't that what she wanted? Or did she want? Was she? Subtly offering herself to me. Damn, I was going crazy, as you may have guessed. The whole night was a slow, burning, endless hell. I could have done it so easily, but I didn't. I wanted it so badly, but I didn't do it. She trusted me implicitly, but she shouldn't have done. The next morning, Kenny told me that she had never slept so well. I didn't bother to tell her that I slept like an insomniac and a church steeple. I wasn't sure I could handle 5 more days like this. The lack of sleep was wearing me down, and it was getting harder to be around. Candy. That day, I did something I swore to myself I would never do in a million years. I cleaned out my garage. It was hard, dirty work, but it was something I could do without straining my brain. And I had a hell of a lot of them left. A sleepless night spent longing for Candy as planted doubts in my head about her feelings for me. How could she be interested in a nobody like me? I spent the whole day cleaning and rearranging. When I returned to the house in the evening, I was like a zombie. The house smelled wonderful. Kenny must be cooking in the kitchen. I immediately went to the bedroom. A shower was clearly needed. A hot shower. And then I planned to jump in a bed. With any luck, I'll be asleep before Candy even realizes I'm in the house. My pathetic ass dragged behind me while I undressed in the dressing room. Without hesitation, I went to the bathroom, urinated, jumped into the shower, and almost fell asleep under the running water. As I dried off, I thought about how wonderful it would be to get some sleep. Dinner's in the oven, I heard Candy say. God, I realized too late that she was in the bathroom, and since I came in, it was surreal. I was standing there naked and watching. How could I not have noticed? I was too stunned to even try to cover myself, and why would I do that now? I stood there for at least 10 minutes. Candy didn't seem at all embarrassed. She didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed. I tried to act cool, but only until I realized that Don Jr. had noticed Candy's beautiful body soaking in the tub. Another beautiful mess. Why? God, why? To hell with what's done. It's done. I didn't apologize after all. She could have said something earlier, or at least closed the door. Kenny got up from the water and got out of the tub. My life was getting stranger by the minute. Candy took my towel and began to dry off. You must be tired. You've been doing this all day. Go to bed, and I'll get you something to eat, she said. So I did. I was too exhausted to argue, and I didn't even bother with clothes. Candy brought 2 plates, and we ate in bed. Luckily, she put on a bathrobe. When she took the empty plates to the kitchen, I thought that after 2 days of living together, we had somehow already turned into an old married couple. We are comfortable with each other. However, there was one problem. Candy was clinging to my back. It was still dark, and the alarm clock showed 3:45. I felt that she was dressed the same way as I was without clothes. Her hand was on top of me, and Don Jr. reached for her hand. I was drawn to Candy like no one else. Before her, her orientation was confusing to me. She should have known what she was doing. Shouldn't she? I started to think about how stupid I was. Does she really trust me that much? Was she modest? Maybe I should have taken the first step. Summoning all my willpower, I pushed all these thoughts away and fell asleep again. Little Don woke up before me. Candy was holding his neck. When I realized what was going on, I slid off the bed. What a stupid thing to do. Do you think about it? Maybe, but I wanted Candy to at least stay awake. During our first contact, I wanted there to be no mistake on either side. We both had to know exactly what was going on. While Candy was sleeping, I was thinking about how things were going. Tonight will be the night. One way or another, I'll make my intentions clear to her. Today was Tuesday, and her parents are coming tomorrow. She'll be busy with them, and I'll be like the fourth wheel on a tricycle. If she's not interested in me, then it's better for me to know about it before they arrive. We spent almost 2 hours at the supermarket, and Candy told me that she needed to start preparing for the Thanksgiving holiday. She had to bake pies, and she would be busy all day. I offered to help, but I didn't go into the kitchen. My day was devoted to running to the market for what we had forgotten. Candy had worked hard in the kitchen, and when she finally sat down, she was clearly tired. I offered a massage for sore back, and she gladly agreed. While my fingers were doing magic, Candy was clearly relaxing. She guided me to the cramped muscles. A little to the left, it was lower. It feels so good. She could. I was just about to ask what else I could do to relieve retention when the phone rang. The fucking phone. What a shitty moment. It was Candy's cell phone. If it was mine, I wouldn't have paid attention to it. Who do you think ruined the moment? It was Candy's mom. They caught an early flight and would arrive later in the evening. Candy was excited, and we spent a couple of hours trying to sort out our stories. How long have we been together? When was the wedding? All the children's names be. Nothing worked out for us. I felt the divorce coming, and we weren't even married. We returned from the airport at 11. Everyone was talking and picking up the conversation. I tried to keep the conversation going. Candy was sitting very close to me. We were pretending to be a couple in love. Hugs and kisses drove me crazy, but I tried not to show it too much. Candy's father, Ben, interrupted the conversation around 1 o'clock in the morning. He said he was going to bed. I followed his example and left Candy with her mom, Cynthia, to talk a little more. I felt that now was not the right time to suggest anything tonight. This feeling was confirmed when Candy climbed in a bed in a flannel. "Don't touch me" nightgown. Don Jr. was not impressed, and he let me sleep. On Wednesday morning, I discovered that Ben had opened my plasma TV and was watching an old war movie from my DVD collection. Candy and Cynthia were busy in the kitchen, so I poured coffee and went to wash the cars. Have you ever felt that something beautiful is within reach, but when you reach out your hand, it slips through your fingers? I couldn't figure out how Candy treats me when her parents are around. By the time the cars were ready, I had already worked up an appetite. Inside, I found Ben shouting at the TV screen, trying to warn John Wayne about the impending demise of the Navy at Pearl Harbor. "For God's sake, get out of there, you're all going to die," he shouted, as if he could change the course of history. I shrugged off the thought and headed to the kitchen, hoping to find a sandwich. Candy and Cynthia were muttering something, but stopped abruptly when they saw me. When this happens, it is very difficult to ignore paranoia. Candy looked confused, and Cynthia was smiling at me. I couldn't figure out if it was a genuine smile or one of those looked, "There's a dumbass." Something was definitely going on, but what? Surprisingly, Candy read my mind and handed me a huge BLT sandwich. Bacon, lettuce, tomatoes. Cynthia took one to Ben, leaving Candy and me alone for the first time since morning. Between bites, I asked, "Did they buy it?" Candy had a strange look that I couldn't read. "Dad doesn't know anything about it. He really likes you. He told me that everyone who has so many John Wayne movies likes you," she whispered. She moved closer to me just as I took another bite. Her eyes closed. She bent down and kissed me with such force that I almost choked. I wiped the mayonnaise off the corner of her mouth as she mumbled "thank you" and then took a big bite out of my BLT. Cynthia came into the kitchen and caught most of our exchange. "Try not to sound too nice," I asked. "Do you want it too?" I asked, offering her my sandwich. "Yes, with pleasure," she said, walked around the Crawford sandwich and kissed me right on the lips. "Jesus, Cynthia, what about Ben?" I whispered loudly. "What about him? He has his own sandwich. And I doubt very much that he wants to kiss you," she laughed. It began to seem to me that the whole family was a little crazy, and I was the worst of them all. Candy was about to burst out laughing, and it was pretty funny when you think about it. The rest of the day passed without any more nonsense on my part. Ben decided to end the day. He was tired of such activity. He put out a bunch of fires at oil wells and, together with Duke, nickname of John Wayne, 1907 to 1979, an American actor, producer, and director, drove several rhinoceroses. I had absolutely no idea how the evening would go before going to bed. I decided to just take it as it is. Candy was giving ambiguous signals with her sleep clothes. It wasn't a flannel nightgown. The nightgown was short and lacy, but not too transparent. I rubbed her shoulders, and her body language told me that I was on the right track. I tried not to attach too much importance to it. I would continue the friendly massage, and then we'll see what happens next. Are you pleased? I asked. Very well, please don't stop. She purred. Let me get some lotion. I told her and went into the bathroom. When I returned, she had already taken off her nightgown and was stretched out on her stomach. I warmed the lotion in my hands and gently spread it over her smooth skin. I started with the muscles of my upper back, rubbing and kneading them. Candy moaned and cooed. With my fingers, I pressed on the muscles located next to the spine. His thumbs penetrated deep into the fabric, making her moan with pleasure. I applied even more lotion to my hands, continuing down to her lower back. Oh my God, yes, right here. I'm in heaven, she whispered. I started to get a little worried. Wouldn't you? The pressure of having to do everything was enormous. How can I be the same, or even better than her female lovers? I doubted my abilities as a male. If I don't stop thinking about this nonsense, I'll talk myself out of doing what I wanted most. I've spent almost an hour up to this point. As the headboard continued to beat, Candy looked shocked. She hugged her head with a pillow, trying to muffle the noise. Don't stop it, she said. How? I replied. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. She almost cried. She was sitting with her knees pressed tightly to her chest. It occurred to me that I could enter Candy's parents with a screwdriver and a wrench. How would they react if I tightened the bolts on the bed while they were making love in the room in front of me? I quickly dismissed the thought, gritting her teeth as if it was my fault. Candy fumed. Do something, Don. And I did the only sensible thing that came to my mind. I kissed her hard enough to take her breath away. For those few seconds, the sound of the bed was ignored. I pushed her back onto the mattress. I was standing at the stove and making French toast. I looked over my shoulder, expecting to see Candy. It smells delicious. Can I have some? Cynthia asked. Of course, I replied, praying to God that she meant toasts. I moved to get a plate from the cupboard, trying to get Cynthia's hands away from me. Cynthia is a very attractive woman, and under other circumstances, I would be very happy to have her by my side. You can all see the position I was in. She was wearing a transparent kimono, and even in the dim light, I could see almost all the features of her beautiful body under the silk. Trying to stay calm, I put some on her plate and went back to the pan to cook more. Candy seems to have picked up another family trait from me, she said cryptically. And how delicious. I took the bake. And what could it be? She's pretty, let's just say. She is vocal during lovemaking. Well, both mother and daughter, I teased. Oh, did you hear that? She said without looking up. How could you miss it? I grinned. To be honest, Don, I was wondering how long it would take you. Candy almost throws herself at you. She told me she was wondering if she would have to rape you. I looked at her in amazement. Really? I had a feeling that I was framed. So I take it that you know everything about her and about me. Am I the only one who doesn't understand this joke? What's going to happen now, Mom? Should I take you to my bed? Are we going to make love as a threesome? I was already getting angry. Is that what you want? Do you want me? What is it? She asked. No, I really don't want to. And how the hell does Ben fit in all this? I guess he likes to watch. Doesn't he? Wow, Don, you got it all mixed up. As for Ben, you're his future son-in-law. He doesn't know anything about Candy's lifestyle choices. It was meant for his own good. So you've been in this from the very beginning? I asked. I started to worry about being led by the nose, as if I had a ring in my nose. Cynthia seemed to know too much about our arrangement. No, Don, I didn't know. I knew about Candy's bed preferences, but until today, I just hoped that she'd put it out of her mind and that you and she were really having it. Don, I'm a caring mother. I want grandchildren. In this scenario, there was very little chance of that. So why did she tell you about us? I mean, she was confused. She had never felt this way about a man before. She was afraid you wouldn't. Answer her. Don, Candy fell in love with you. She told me how wonderful you are to her. She wanted to get advice from her mother. That doesn't even come close to explaining why you were hitting on me. It was a simple test, Don. Maybe it was stupid of me, but it told me what I wanted. To know about you as a man. And what was that? That she was right about you. You're real, Don. She's my child. I only want the best for her. By this time, my French toast was burnt. While I was hastily preparing a new portion, Cynthia finished eating. I was thinking about what she had done and told me. None of this made sense to me, but female logic knocks the shit out of me. Candy fell in love with me. Imagine that. She was rushing at me, but I was too afraid to make a wrong move to react to it. Now that you realize that all this was a sham, don't you think that maybe we're all rushing things? I asked. Maybe so, Don. But sometimes when the chemistry is just right, it only takes one heartbeat to figure it out, she replied. Cynthia, can I ask you one last thing? Of course, honey. Shoot. What would you do if I was like all these other guys? How far would you go? This is a difficult question. You were a handsome man. Maybe I would, and maybe I wouldn't. One thing's for sure. You'll never know for sure, she said with a wink. She came up to me and we hugged. Hugged the way my mom would hug me. When she left, I'm sure she was shaking her ass more than usual. This woman just beat me up. I was glad she liked me. When I returned, Candy was a little annoyed. Who needs 45 minutes to make French toast? I'm not hungry now, she pouted. I put the plate next to her. But you'll be hungry in 5 minutes, I said, climbing between her legs and running my tongue over her slit. In 3 minutes and 20 seconds. This toast is just perfect. No wonder it took so long to prepare. When Candy fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if Cynthia was right. Could we really fall in love with each other in such a short time? I thought about it until I finally succumbed to sleep. Did I get a response? On Thanksgiving morning, Candy and I took a shower together. We got to know each other's bodies even more while hot water was pouring over us. Candy, I had a long talk with your mom in the kitchen last night, I said. She looked worried. Don, I can explain. Your mom has already done it. She looked very scared, fearing the worst. What did she say? She said a lot of things. But the main thing I learned last night was that we both had secrets from each other. It's all going to end right now. There's no way around it. I'll just say it. Candy, I fell in love with you. What? I think I have soap in my ears. What you just said. I wondered for a moment if Cynthia was pulling my chain. I said, I love you, Candy. I confessed. I didn't have to think long about whether I had done the right thing. Candy jumped up from the floor and wrapped her arms and legs around me. Her kiss said a lot about her feelings for me. She broke the kiss. And I love you too, she said with tears in her eyes. Ben was glued to the TV. He and John were still trying to win World War II. When I poured the morning coffee, Cynthia smiled. How are you this morning, Donald? Just fine, Mom, I replied. This made her laugh, but I was a little alarmed that she called me Donald. Only my mother got away with it. A few seconds later, Candy came and kissed me so hard that I almost fell to my knees. She hugged Cynthia tightly and whispered something in her ear. They both smiled. I couldn't be happier, Cynthia said. The bird is already in the oven. You two should find something to do for a few hours. Candy quickly got her bearings, grabbed my hand, and hurried into the bedroom. We spent the next few hours in bed watching a great football game on TV. The table was set for a magnificent feast. It would be a pity to carve a perfectly brown turkey. But no, everything looked so delicious that I could hardly wait. I was chatting with the girls while enjoying our Thanksgiving dinner. Ben was busy concentrating on his food and didn't seem to be paying attention to the chatter. I think he was trying to go back and see what was going on. In Fort Apache, all of a sudden, Candy said, "I love you, Don," she said softly. And the look she gave me melted my heart. Then from the farthest, most remote part of left field, Ben, without looking up and without looking up from the potato said, "Candy, does that mean you're not a lesbian anymore?" The silence was like a sonic boom. The girls stared at him with their mouth. "Sige," Ben said, Cynthia surprised. "At the same time," Candy screamed. "Dad," without missing a single bite, Ben replied. "What?" "It's a valid question," shrugging his shoulders. The prank was over, and we were all on a roll. To be honest, I don't remember when I laughed so hard. Ben looked right at me and grinned the biggest shitty grin I've ever seen. "Be careful, son. You need to learn something if you want to survive in a marriage," he told me. Without saying another word, he plunged back into his plate. Candy and her mother finally figured out what the humor was. I swore before God that if I lived to be 100 years old, every time I sat down at this table, I would remember this meal. Candy walked over to what was now our bed. I made love to her. We took our time. She touched those corners of my soul that had never been used before. I idolized her with a passion that I had never shown to anyone else. We hardly paid any attention to the sound of the headboard in the next room. The next morning, when the taxi pulled up, we said goodbye to Ben and Cynthia. I promised Ben that I would have a fresh pack of DVDs for their Christmas visit. It's been a hell of an interesting week. I missed a few football matches that I was planning, but I got unexpected dividends. I became a sweet tooth. Yes, that's exactly what I said. And only candy can satisfy a sweet tooth.